Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to my screencast on the Turkana and their language and culture. The first question I would like to answer in this screencast is, who are they? Who are the Turkana? The Turkana are a nomadic tribe of over 500,000 members with a territory located at the Jade Sea, which is now commonly known as Lake Turkana. Their land is divided over Kenya and South Sudan, with a very small bit of Uganda as well. They, up until now, remained untouched by colonization and its influence. The males are fierce warriors who live largely from cattle theft from nearby tribes. So let's take a look at their culture. What's very special about them is that they are monotheistic. They have one creator who's called Akui, and he's the bringer of rain. Now, seeing as they live in sub-Saharan Africa in a semi-arid desert, rain for them is basically a synonym for life, because they need water so badly. What they live off is raiding livestock from other tribes. Their wealth is measured in oxen, in camels, in goats, in sheep, instead of in money. So where do they get this livestock? Well, mostly from nearby tribes. Basically, they're a tribe of thieves. Males are known to wear Kalashnikovs all day long. They're warriors, and they're really not all that shy to flaunt their weapons. Females can be very easily recognized because they wear beaded necklaces. Not just one or two like we would do, but they wear up to 5 kilograms of them, and they never take them off. Also, being nomadic as they are, they're not exactly a fan of borders, or from the colonists who drew them. Let's take a look at colonization. Their land was, during the colonization, suddenly split up between Uganda, Kenya, and Sudan. Now, everyone who's ever seen the border of Sudan knows this. Sudan is basically just a straight line. Later, their land integrated entirely into Kenya. However, they got hardly any visitors. At most, a few officials, but that was it. Why? Because they were cut off by the close district ordinance. Since they got so few visitors, they hardly had any influence from colonization, and they could just go on living the way they always had. In 1964, when Kenya was already independent, the president repealed the ordinance. However, they still hardly got any visitors because most people feared this tribe of warriors. And it's not like anyone would visit for the area because it was a semi-arid desert. It's hard to survive in there if you don't know how to. So tourism isn't exactly the best way to go. Since they got so few influences, there was no need to change their culture nor their language. Swahili, which is used as the lingua franca in the region, was used to limit tribal differences. Now, Swahili is a language that was created and contains pieces of Arab, of Portuguese, French, German, and even English. But for the Turkana, except for maybe a little use when it comes to trade, Swahili, being the lingua franca it is, had no use at all. Because they were cut off from the rest of the world. They had no one else to communicate with. Now then, there's the start of a change. The older generation nowadays still is analphabetic, has no knowledge of English or Swahili, and they just live the way they always have. Now the younger generation takes education. Why? Because it gives them a better chance in life. When you know Swahili, when you know English, nowadays in Kenya, it helps you a great deal. However, with progress comes change, and with change comes loss of old cultures and habits. And that's why they felt like their language and their culture had to be preserved. The first thing they did was language preservation through writing. Their language, the Turkana language, was a spoken language, and a spoken language only. It had no alphabet and no way to write stories. Now, they made an alphabet, a way to write texts based on the Latin alphabet, the same one we use nowadays. When a text is written, it's there, it remains, and it preserves the language it's written in. It's how we learn Latin nowadays, even though it's been a dead language for ages. And the script does the same for the Turkana language. The languages are really important in the area because in Kenya alone, 69 languages are spoken. And when we look, for example, at Nigeria, 500 languages are spoken. This is a huge problem. Languages unite and divide tribes. They unite them because if one tribe speaks one language, they only have each other to communicate with. They have to be united because they have no one else. It also divides tribes, not amongst each other, but the entire tribe against another entire tribe because they don't understand each other. They have no way to communicate verbally. Like we said, with programs comes change and comes loss of culture. However, the Turkana are very, very strict on their culture. Even the younger generations, those who have been educated, refuse to give up their lifestyle. Their lifestyle is basically just cattle theft. But they stick to it because it's what they are, it's who they are, and they don't want to change. And then lastly, I'd like to take a look at the importance of their language. Their language is basically everything they are. It's the soul of who and what they are. It consists of stories, myths, it has a lot of songs in them. And all of those lose some implicit and very subtle meaning when they're translated. They have songs called the Naleo, which is about an ox that turns into an avatar for a warrior. You could never sing that same song in, for example, English or even Swahili and have the exact same meaning. It loses something. The same goes for their stories and their myths. And secondly, every language, but this one in particular, expresses a certain view on life and on the world around them. This doesn't only go for the Turkana language, it goes for every language. You can learn something on their culture and on how they see the world and society by just looking at their language and how it's formed. And that's why the Turkana language has to be preserved and is such a beautiful example of how a language unites people in a very subtle but efficient way. I'd like to thank you for listening to me rambling about a language which I do not genuinely know. And maybe until next time.